guys, call me crazy, but I think the DCGU might be pretty good. Now, the upcoming Clayface movie has finally been cast with a lead. Tom Rees Harries lands the starring role in Clayface, and while I'm not familiar with his work, I will say he does give me Clayface vibes. Now, looking at this story and why it's got me excited, this will not be your typical superhero program. It's going to be a body horror film, according to James Gunn and Matt Reeves. And according to the writer, Mike Flanagan, it will be heavily inspired by the Batman the animated series episode Feet of Clay, which I think gives us a little bit of an insight as to what this story is going to be about. Now, additionally, Mike Flanagan and company describe the movie as a horror flick focusing on a B-movie actor who drinks a substance that's supposed to help his career and which instead leaves him made entirely of clay. Now, thinking about the Feet of Clay episode, it is a very similar setup, which makes me believe this will be a Clayface origin story, but it could also start at a point in the story where Clayface is already kind of Clayface. Let me explain. In the animated series, we find that the actor has actually been using some special liquid for quite some time. In fact, his partner in crime, his stunt double, mentions that he's been a successful movie star for a long time since the accident, which I don't believe is going to be quite exactly the case for our main man Tom in this version of Clayface. But essentially, in the animated series, he is addicted to the what we'll just call the Clayface drug for now, eventually gets cut off from it, makes a bold yet stupid attempt to go to the facility where it's made and steal a whole big mess of it so he can always have his supply and not lose his job. At which point, some of the goons hired by the mob boss that had been supplying him with his face-changing liquid capture our hero and pour the Clayface jelly right down his throat. Now, Matt Hagen, who is Clayface in the animated series, has been shown throughout the episode to be a very volatile character, somebody who just doesn't have a lot of self-confidence, of course, thinking that his entire career, his whole life will be over if he doesn't have this shape-shifting clay that can fix things for him. And so when he inevitably becomes a giant ugly clay monster, but yet finds that he is able with enough concentration to reshape himself, it really brings out the worst of Matt's character. He becomes very agitated, attacks his boy Teddy, throws him out, and even goes to the point where he fakes his own death and takes pleasure from deceiving homeboy. So I'm kind of speed running through a lot of the details of that because, well, A, I don't want to spoil everything accidentally for this movie, and B, if you haven't seen it, I think you should just go watch it yourself. And this is not meant to replace any of that stuff. But the broad strokes, the point of the matter is that in the animated series, they do a great job of showing you that Matt is a very dark individual, somebody who is on a cliff, sort of teetering, and being turned into a, quote, monster in the physical form really just helps push him into embracing his inner monster, somebody he kind of already was throughout. So by using it in the film and having it potentially be a failed, like a B-list horror movie actor, as they've described it, I think really sort of lends itself to that overall theme that this is going to be somebody who views himself as a failure, who has this already kind of has some sociopathic tendencies, a bit of a narcissist at the very least. So I just think this is going to be a lot of fun. As a fan of horror films, I think Clayface is an incredible horror monster that could end up kind of having his own thing. It's almost a shame that this will probably get folded into just the more general DC experience. I imagine if it's got any success at all, they won't be able to resist lending this to the major DC programs. But much like the Penguin was able to just be its own crime drama, that at least by the time I was finished with it, I felt, although it was odd to say, hey, where's Batman for all this? It would have been good on its own had none of those characters been related to Batman and Gotham City and any of that stuff. And I think that the potential story being told here with Clayface just might be something that's good enough to stand on its own. And as somebody who always wanted to see a noir detective Batman movie, Matt Reeves and team delivered on that front. It was not perfect in my opinion, but generally speaking, very good. So I happen to think that they've done the noir thing. They did the crime mafia drama thing, and now they're going to do body horror. And with the three main people on this being Gunn, Flanagan, and Reeves, it just feels like it's going to be a very good movie. So maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm losing it, but between this and the announcement that Mr. Freeze has been locked in for the Batman 2 and that Giancarlo Esposito is the lead, the front runner, I guess, for playing Mr. Freeze, it's got me excited. I, for one, would not mind seeing a more grounded version of Batman that still ends up some way or another dealing with the full rogues gallery. Like, that's the big challenge at times when you want the realistic, the dark, gritty Batman. Well, you can only do so many of his villains before you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit. So if this Clayface thing works and they do it in a way where it's got an interesting body horror element and it doesn't feel too cartoony, then I think that really helps set the stage for having a villain in Batman 2 that is Mr. Freeze, you know, and not have him singing about being Mr. White Christmas and whatnot. So what do you think, gang? Are you excited about Clayface? Do you think they should have gone with a more well-known actor? I've noticed that there seems to be a decision to try to go for more up-and-coming actors, maybe a lesser focus on established stars for some of these main roles. I personally think it's a great move, especially in this case when you look at the list of actors that they were considering for Clayface. At least to me, they were a lot of names that I had to do some research in order to figure out who they were. There weren't a lot of major marquee actors locked in or lined up for Clayface, and I think that's perfect for this character in particular. But generally speaking, I think the more that DC does to sort of separate themselves from Marvel, I think that's just better for them. Yeah, Marvel right now, the only thing they've got is, hey, it's Robert Downey Jr. Hey, it's nostalgia. Hey, here are these characters we own that you haven't seen for a while. You're going to get to see them soon. You know, the X-Men are going to come soon. Isn't that great? So I am excited. For the first time in a long time, I am actually excited about the future of the DC GU trademark. That's a verbal trademark. That's legally binding. All right, gang, let me know what you think. We will see you with more clips throughout the week, James and I, as we gear up for Friday's full episode of the Weekly Dweeb. Of course, if you still want to catch us live, hopefully you're a Star Wars fan, and you can come hang out with us Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern for Han Shot First. And until next time, dweebs, I will see you soon.